Hi, I'm Rashonda. I'm the creator of this YouTube channel as well as the artbyro.com website where you can find over 200 art and drawing tutorials. In today's video, I'll be drawing a rosebud, and like usual, I'm going to do this on an artist trading card, which you can find more information about those if you're not familiar with them. Just look in the description box, and I hope you do enjoy this video. If you do, please give it a like. And don't forget to subscribe to get notified of future videos. Let's go ahead and go on over to the art studio and get started on drawing that rosebud. In today's video, I'm going to be drawing a rosebud. Like usual, I'm using an artist trading card. You can do yours on anything you'd like. And I will be using markers today. So let's go ahead and begin with our shapes and guidelines. If you've watched any of my other videos, you know I like to start with some basic shapes. So we're going to start with a circle, and then we can draw where the stem is going to come down. And we're going to refine this and add more details. So this is just giving us a rough idea of where everything's going to go. And then the top of the rose is going to come up there. Now the next thing I like to do is make kind of this S shape coming from up here, comes around this way, and then curves around down towards the bottom. And then we need to make the other side is going to come around over here. So as you can see, I'm using those basic shapes that I made earlier. Those are my guidelines. And I'm using those to help me figure out where everything needs to be. And now what we want to do is we want to start overlapping and curling our petals a little bit, because they're not going to be completely straight lines. They'll have some curves and wrinkles to them. So we can start drawing it that way a little bit. And then for this one, same thing. And you can do this however you want. You can make them a little smoother. It kind of depends on the style you're going for. We can have some little indents in here. Come around this way. So we'll darken it up as we go. And I have my click eraser that I like using if anything doesn't look quite right. I can make changes with that. So we're going to make this petal coming around this way. Bring it down here like that. So you can erase some of this if you need to, or we can erase it later. As long as you can see what's going on and you know what's happening in here, you don't need to worry about erasing it. But if you find that it's getting in your way and you can't really tell what's going on, then you might need to use your eraser and clean up as you go. So we'll make that come down here. So we're just making the different layers of this rosebud. We'll have one that comes around inside. Bring that down. So we're just going to keep adding some layers, working on it, going back and forth, figuring out where things need to be. So for this side, I'll bring another one that comes out this outside edge. and then comes around, and you can make them smooth. You can make them a little bit more stylized. Sometimes I like flattening out my lines just to add a little artistic style to it. Totally optional. It's up to you how you want your overall look and feel to be. But by doing this and making the rounded edges more straight, so having the curves be less rounded and having not sharp edges, but a little bit sharper than what they were, you can stylize it a little bit. And that's fun to try doing drawings that way, just for something a little bit different. And as you go, you can fix things. I want this bottom to come out a little bit more. I want it a little wider at the bottom. Bring that around. And you can just kind of play around with it a little bit until you have a look that you're happy with. I'm going to bring this out a little bit wider too. And then the only thing left to do after you have the rose drawn in will be to add in the stem, any leaves you want. So I'm going to make this inside piece in here. This will come around, connect to that. So that's pretty much it for the inside. And then we can add some details to the stem. Again, just breaking up the lines a little bit will make them look a bit more interesting. And I can do the same thing, make it sort of stylized by making those a little bit sharper edges. And you can have a combination of rounded shapes and less round shapes. Just kind of play around with it, experiment, have some fun. And then we can have another leaf coming over here. You can let your drawing go right off the edge of the paper. That's not going to hurt anything. I like to draw nice and big and fill the whole card up. We can have a line going through the middle there. Maybe have it come back onto the paper and back off again. A lot of different things you can do. So don't be afraid to experiment a little bit, play around with it, come up with some different ideas, try things. It's one of the reasons I love using artist trading cards, is because they're smaller, they don't take as much time, and I feel like I can experiment a little bit more with them. So the next step is to outline the drawing. I'm going to be using a Sharpie pen. You can use a marker. You can use any type of outlining pen you might want to use. And when you do your outline, you can do one line weight. You can vary your line weights. Don't know why that was hard to say. You can vary your line weights and make some of them thicker, some of them thin. You could use a brush pen. You could use a color besides black. I typically use black for mine, but it's just the style that I like. You can use whatever suits you and your artwork in the end result that you're going for. So if you don't like the way the black outline looks, then you could try using red, you could try browns, pink, whatever you think is going to make your artwork look the way you want it to look. So I'm just going to go ahead and finish up this outline. I'm going to speed that up a little bit. If you want to make your outline darker, more bold, then you just have to go back over it a couple times. Keep making it a little bit bigger each time until you get the desired look that you're going for. So I'm going to speed this up, and then I'll be back when I have that done. Now the next step is to clean up the drawing with a black eraser. You can use any type of eraser for this. You can use one of those pink erasers. This just happens to be one that I had. It's nothing special. It just came with one of those cheap pencil drawing sets. So now we need to add the color. I'm going to use markers today. And usually what I do is I use a scrap piece of paper and I test my markers on here to see which colors go good together, which markers, because when I do my drawings, I want the colors to blend. So I need to make sure I have markers that are close in color but different enough that I can have a little variation. So the way I typically work is I like to fill in a section with the lightest color, and then I'll use the darker color to add some areas with shadow and to make a little bit of variation in the color so that my drawing is not flat. You can do it just one solid color. You could just choose like that darker color, the darker green, and fill it in that solid green color. But usually what I'll do is I'll put the lightest color down, and then I will do the darker color, and then I go back in with the lighter color and blend that edge. So in order to get a smooth edge, you need your colors that look a little bit different but are close enough that they blend smoothly. But if they're too close, they're going to look like the same color. So it's a little bit of a balancing act to find that nice balance in between, which also means you have to have a lot of markers to try to get that balance. And sometimes even then you don't always get it. So to some extent you have to be okay with it not being as smooth of a transition as you might like, but something that feels acceptable enough that you don't feel like it's messing up your drawing. And there's other ways you can do this. It would probably make more sense and be a little more, I don't know how to say it, like the way that I do my drawings, I'm using more marker than I probably would need to, but I like having the control by putting the light color down first and then doing the darker color over top. It gives me more control on how it looks. So if you did the opposite and put the darkest color down first, then you're sort of stuck with whatever you put down there, because obviously you can't cover up a dark color with a lighter color or get rid of it because it's marker. So by putting the lighter color down first, then I can add the darker color as I go. And as I'm doing it, I can look and determine, do I want more over here or do I want to leave it as it is? But then the downside to that is you do end up using a bit more marker for that lighter color, because a lot of it's going to get covered up anyway. But it helps for what I'm trying to do. It helps me to have that little bit of control, for a lack of a better way to describe it. So I'm just going to do the same thing with the pink. And I want to make sure I'm working in small sections so that the marker stays wet and the alcohol doesn't evaporate. And then I'll do the darker color. Now once the alcohol evaporates, the marker dries, you won't be able to blend the colors the same way. So you need to work in sections of your drawing at a time so you can blend it. But if you don't want to blend your colors, if you just want them solid, if you're just going to use one color and color it in and not have that color variation, then you don't need to worry about that. Or if you want that harsher edge and you're not worried about blending it in smoothly, then you wouldn't need to worry about it. So I'm just going to keep filling in these sections using the darker color to add in some shadows, create a little variation. So I will go ahead and speed this up, finish adding in the colors, and then I will be back when that's done. Okay, one thing I want to point out about the markers is that when they start to run dry, so this pink doesn't have much left in it, oftentimes if you turn the marker around and use the bigger point on it, you can get a little bit more out of your markers. So the last thing I want to do is I need to add some kind of a background. And this is one of those things that you can add a lot of variation to your drawings by just how you do the background. There's different ways you can do that. So this is something I don't typically do. Normally I'll add some color to the background. I might do some kind of a gradation of colors. But it's good to try different things from time to time. Not to mention using supplies you don't normally use. These markers don't get a ton of use. So it's one of the things that's always on my mind is what can I do with my art supplies that don't get used? Try different things out, experiment a little bit. Get out of your comfort zone. So I'm going to try just adding in some lines just to break up that background a little bit. And as I was mentioning earlier, one of the things I like about using the artist trading cards is that because they're a lot quicker than working on like in a sketchbook or a full sheet of paper, they don't take as much time, so I feel like I have a little bit more freedom to experiment and try new things because I'm not spending an hour or two making a big full-size drawing. I can do an artist trading card in about 30 minutes usually if it's not something super detailed. And therefore, if I want to try something I've never done before and it doesn't turn out the way that I want it to, it's okay because I didn't spend a bunch of time. If I want to try again and make another one, I can. And I don't have to worry about, oh, I just wasted 2 hours on a drawing and I ruined it by trying something different with the background and not loving how it turned out and feeling like I just wasted a bunch of time. And if you're not familiar with artist trading cards or what they are intended to be traded, but obviously you don't have to trade them. I keep mine in a portfolio so I can go back and look at them, come up with ideas for different drawings, or sometimes I'll revisit a drawing and try something new with it just to push myself a little bit. And then at some point I usually do end up trading them. I just don't do it all the time. But they're a good way to give yourself a little bit of time freedom, make it more comfortable to experiment and try different things. So I'm just trying to smooth this out a little bit. And then to finish off the drawing, the last thing I usually do is use one of these jelly roll pens. It's just a white jelly roll pen. And then I'll add some white highlights just to kind of break up these big areas of color. It makes the color stand out a little bit more. You do have to wait for the marker to dry. If the marker's still wet, the white will just absorb into the paper, which is okay. If you try doing the white too soon, just let your marker dry a little bit more and then just go right back over top of it and it'll show up. You'll know if it's too wet because you can see it absorb into the paper. And I'm not really looking at like what direction a light source is coming from or anything like that. I'm just looking where there's big blocks of color. And I'm adding some white so I can just break that up a little bit. Again, that's just part of the style of my artwork. So you may want to do yours differently than that. But that is it for the rosebud drawing. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you next time. Happy creating! Well, that's it for today's video. Hopefully you followed along and enjoyed it. If you did, don't forget to give us a like and subscribe for future videos. And check out that description box. There's some information in there for you. And I will see you next time. Bye!